Days turned into weeks, and Eleanor found herself increasingly drawn to Count Alucard's presence. Despite her initial reservations and her father's stern warnings, she couldn't deny the magnetic pull she felt towards him. Their conversations became a regular occurrence, often stretching long into the night in the quiet solitude of the guest cottage. Each meeting with Count Alucard unveiled new layers of his character. He spoke of distant lands he had traveled, of ancient civilizations he had studied, and of philosophies that challenged Eleanor's own beliefs. There was an air of mystery about him that both intrigued and unsettled her, yet she couldn't bring herself to stay away. Meanwhile, tension simmered within the Sinclair plantation. Jonathan Sinclair's concern for his daughter grew with each passing day. He had noticed Eleanor's frequent absences and her distracted demeanor during meals and gatherings. He had even caught snippets of conversations between Eleanor and the Count that left him uneasy. One evening, as the sun dipped low on the horizon, Jonathan Sinclair sought out his daughter in the gardens. He found her sitting on a stone bench beneath a sprawling oak tree, a book open in her lap. The air was thick with the scent of jasmine, mingling with the distant sound of crickets. "Eleanor," Jonathan began gently, taking a seat beside her. "We need to talk." Eleanor looked up from her book, her expression a mix of surprise and apprehension. "Father, what is it?" Jonathan sighed heavily, his brow furrowed with concern. "I've been observing you these past weeks, Eleanor. Your fascination with Count Alucard troubles me. I've heard whispers from the servants, seen the way the townsfolk look at us with suspicion." Eleanor lowered her gaze, a flush of guilt coloring her cheeks. "Father, I didn't mean to cause any harm. Count Alucard is not as the rumors say. He's kind and knowledgeable." Jonathan cut her off, his voice tinged with urgency. "Eleanor, I fear you're being blinded by his charm. There's something not right about him. I've seen the way he looks at you. The way he draws you in with his words. It's as if he's cast a spell over you." Eleanor's heart sank at her father's words. "Father, please understand. I care for him." Jonathan's expression softened, his concern etched deeply into his features. "I know you do, Eleanor. But I cannot allow you to endanger yourself or our family's reputation. There's darkness in that man, Eleanor. I beg you to heed my warnings." Tears welled up in Eleanor's eyes as she struggled to find the right words. "Father, I promise to be cautious. But please, give him a chance. He's not what you think." Jonathan sighed again, his gaze searching hers. "Very well, Eleanor. I will trust you. But promise me this, you will not make any hasty decisions. Think carefully about your actions and their consequences." Eleanor nodded solemnly, grateful for her father's understanding yet torn by the conflicting emotions within her heart. She knew she couldn't ignore Count Alucard's presence, nor could she dismiss her growing feelings for him. But she also knew that her father's concerns were not unfounded. As the days passed, Eleanor found herself caught in a whirlwind of emotions. Her time with Count Alucard became a delicate balance between fascination and caution, desire and apprehension. She sought solace in the quiet moments they shared, treasuring each stolen glance and whispered conversation. Yet, beneath the surface of their burgeoning relationship, shadows lurked. Strange occurrences began to plague the plantation, whispers in the night, unsettling dreams, and the eerie sensation of being watched. Eleanor tried to dismiss them as mere superstitions, but doubts gnawed at her mind. One stormy night, as rain lashed against the windows of the plantation house, Eleanor found herself unable to sleep. Restless and unsettled, she slipped out of her room and made her way towards the guest cottage where Count Alucard stayed. Lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating the path ahead with an eerie glow. When Eleanor reached the cottage, she found the door ajar. A cold shiver ran down her spine as she pushed it open cautiously. The interior was dimly lit by a single candle, casting long shadows across the room. Count Alucard stood by the window, his back turned towards her. "Count Alucard," Eleanor called softly, her voice barely above a whisper. He turned to face her, his expression unreadable in the flickering candlelight. "Eleanor," he said, his voice tinged with concern. "What are you doing here? It's not safe." Eleanor stepped further into the room, her heart pounding in her chest. "I couldn't sleep," she admitted, her gaze searching his face. "I needed to see you." Count Alucard studied her for a moment, his blue eyes piercing through the darkness. "You shouldn't have come," he said quietly. "There are things you don't understand." Eleanor took a step closer, ignoring the warning bells ringing in her mind. "Tell me, Count Alucard. Tell me what's been happening. I want to understand." He hesitated, his jaw clenched with internal conflict. "There are forces at work here, Eleanor. Dark forces that threaten everything you hold dear." Eleanor reached out to him, her hand trembling slightly. "I don't care," she whispered. "I trust you." Count Alucard's gaze softened, a flicker of emotion crossing his features. Without a word, he took her hand in his touch sending a jolt of electricity through her veins. For a moment, they stood in silence, the storm raging outside echoing the turmoil in their hearts. "I can't promise you safety, Eleanor," Count Alucard murmured, his voice low and intense. "But I can promise you this, I will do everything in my power to protect you." Eleanor looked into his eyes, seeing the depth of his sincerity and the hint of vulnerability that lay hidden beneath his stoic exterior. In that moment, she made a decision that would forever alter the course of her life. "Together," she said softly, her voice steady despite the uncertainty that lay ahead. "We'll face whatever comes together." Count Alucard nodded solemnly, a ghost of a smile playing on his lips. "Together," he echoed, his grip tightening around her hand. And as the storm raged outside, Eleanor and Count Alucard stood united in the face of darkness. Their destinies intertwined in ways neither of them could yet comprehend. In the days that followed their whispered agreement in the dimly lit guest cottage, Eleanor's life seemed to blur between moments of tranquility and mounting unease. She continued to spend stolen hours with Count Alucard, drawn ever deeper into his world of ancient lore and hidden knowledge. Yet, despite the comfort she found in his presence, a lingering sense of foreboding persisted. As Eleanor walked through the sprawling gardens of the Sinclair plantation one crisp morning, she found herself reflecting on the events of the past weeks. The whispers among the servants had grown louder, fueled by the mysterious occurrences that seemed to follow in Count Alucard's wake. Animals spooked for no apparent reason, strange symbols appeared etched into the bark of trees overnight. And rumors of eerie lights seen in the dead of night spread like wildfire through the nearby town. Jonathan Sinclair's concern for his daughter deepened with each passing day. He had noticed the change in Eleanor, her distracted gaze, her frequent absences from family gatherings, and the haunted look in her eyes when she thought no one was watching. He knew that Eleanor's heart had been captured by Count Alucard's enigmatic charm. But he also feared the darkness that seemed to cling to the man like a shroud. One evening, as dusk settled over the plantation, Jonathan sought out Eleanor once more. He found her in the library, a place she often retreated to when she needed solace or escape. Books lined the walls from floor to ceiling, their leather-bound spines gleaming in the soft glow of oil lamps. "Eleanor," Jonathan began gently, taking a seat opposite her at a massive oak table strewn with ancient tomes. "We need to talk." Eleanor glanced up from the book she had been pretending to read, her heart sinking at the seriousness in her father's eyes. "Father, please." Jonathan sighed heavily, his hands clasped tightly together on the table. "I can't ignore what's happening any longer, Eleanor. Strange things are happening on this plantation, things that began when Count Alucard arrived." Eleanor's breath caught in her throat, her mind racing with a mixture of fear and defiance. "Father, you don't understand. Count Alucard is not responsible for..." Jonathan held up a hand, cutting her off gently but firmly. "Eleanor, I've seen the way he looks at you. I've heard the rumors, seen the fear in the eyes of our neighbors. He brings danger with him, whether he intends to or not." Tears welled up in Eleanor's eyes as she struggled to find the right words. "Father, please trust me. Count Alucard is not what you think. He cares for me." Jonathan's expression softened, his heart breaking at the pain in his daughter's voice. "Eleanor, I know you believe that. But I cannot risk your safety, or the safety of our home. Please, for the sake of our family, reconsider your relationship with him." Eleanor looked down at her hands, her fingers tracing the intricate patterns on the table's surface. She knew her father spoke out of love and concern, but she couldn't ignore the bond she shared with Count Alucard. "I can't," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I can't turn away from him now." Jonathan reached across the table, gently taking Eleanor's hand in his own. "Eleanor, I beg you to think carefully about your future. This man, he may not be what he seems." Eleanor met her father's gaze, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "I know, Father. But I have to find out the truth for myself." With those words hanging in the air, Eleanor rose from her seat and left the library, her heart heavy with conflicting emotions. She wandered aimlessly through the plantation house, her footsteps echoing in the empty corridors. As she passed by the closed door of the guest cottage where Count Alucard resided, she hesitated for a moment before continuing on her way.